Hello, I'm Murtada El Fadl, film programmer at Newfest, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this post-screening conversation with the filmmaker behind the film you've just watched, HOUB, The Love. It is my pleasure to welcome filmmaker Shariff Nasr.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Hi, Shariff. It's so wonderful to meet you over the internet. And I was so happy that we're able to do this and to able to show your wonderful film to our audiences. Congratulations. It's really strong work.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed the film.
I want to start this conversation by asking you about the origin of it. So I understand that is loosely based on the theater work and experience of your lead actor, Fahad Larzawi. So can you talk about that process of how you turned that work and collaborated with another writer to sort of come with the concept of the film?
Yeah, I mean, it actually started with me visiting my family in the Middle East, and they were also loving and welcoming and giving me the best food and everything. And suddenly I was wondering, like, if I would feel attracted to men, would these loving people still love me the same?
Mm.
And even though I do believe they would, I know it would also cause some trouble. But then I was wondering, like, if I watch media when it comes to the MENA community, so the Middle Eastern North African community, when it comes to the LGBTQ, um, uh, conversation, it always seems in the media that it's like either you choose your family or your sexuality, and like as if there's nothing in between. So I was wondering, what if you want to combine both? If you want to have
Mhm.
and your family and still follow your real feelings,
Mhm.
um, what would happen and how would this conversation go? So that was the start of the film,
Mhm.
and then actually, yeah, I talked with Fahad because he has experienced this, and we were friends, and we just thought, okay, we're gonna sit outside and have a drink and just talk about it. And then actually the whole story already was, uh, was unraveling, and we were like, okay, we need to tell this story. So that was actually the start of everything. Fahad was busy with a theater play at that time, and he said, well, I don't want this film to be about me, because he said, I'm now doing this in this theater play, but I want the film to be a fictional story. So the film is loosely based on things he has
Mhm.
experienced, but also from other people we've talked to that had similar experiences.
Mhm. Yeah, this film really resonated with me personally. I'm from Sudan, so I'm from sort of an Arab, not sort of, I'm from an Arab background.
Yeah.
So, and what I loved about this film is sort of like the way you dramatize is sort of like the push pull of the old country with the new country and the family. That was so wonderful to see, and all the tension and all the love, it's all there. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you. um, yeah, it were. I mean, yeah, that was the whole thing. The whole is it juxtaposition? Is that the right word? I don't know.
Yes.
The things that you have, all these loving things that also you see the whole community caring for them when they think uh, they are struggling with totally different uh, problems, and just because they don't want to talk about it, but at the same time, um, they want to keep that silent, they want to keep up appearances, but how long can you keep up the appearances, because it goes worse and worse. And isn't it better to just be honest and talk about it? And at the same time, we see the whole family uh, struggling, everyone um, with their own perspective, and like an onion, you peel, and every time there's a new layer and a new layer, and you finally come to the core that you start to understand what is there, and you I try to, at least, that you can understand all the perspectives of the family members, and I hope that explains a bit. I hope it
Yeah.
answers your question.
It does. It totally does. I was just struck by this family, and I really love the work of all the actors in it. And I wanted to ask you about sort of how you created that sort of cohesive ensemble of actors who played the four members of the family. If you can talk about that process and how you worked with them, and was there rehearsal time? How did you come up with, because they sound and feel like a real family.
Oh, yeah, no, well, that's a great compliment, because that was what we wanted to. We wanted to create a genuine, family structure, and so we had Fahad. That was the basis. Like, we knew he was going to be the actor. Then we had to find the parents. In the Netherlands, it was kind of hard to find the right actors to play the parents, because there are not many Arab actors from in that age, like that generation. Didn't
Mhm.
Not a lot of people followed the acting path, because they were the first generation in the Netherlands.
Mhm.
So there are just a couple of actors, and they didn't bring the right vibe that we were looking for. And then we were looking abroad. Uh, Even though in the Netherlands we had one, but he was Egyptian, so then the language is totally different than Moroccan.
Mhm.
So then
Oh,
we
yeah.
would, like, we have to struggle with that. So we also thought we have to look abroad, and then we found, as a mother, I saw the movie Adam with Lubna Azabal in it.
Yeah.
And she was amazing, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, I want her, but she's actually a bit too young. So we were
Mm.
talking. When I met her, I was like, oh no, they made you older in that film, because she was like really fresh and young. She was just 47. I
Yeah.
was like, how can she play the mother of Fat? Well, she can also be the older sister. Um,
Yeah.
but we were talking about it, like, how can we make her a little bit older, in, like, but not too fake, but especially, like, how can she? It's also the your posture, and she did an amazing job of, like, even at night she was still working on her
Yeah.
character, and really working on how can I make an play an elderly woman who could
Yeah.
be his mother. So she rocked it. And then we had Slimane Dazi, and he's actually from France, and he's Algerian. He has an Algerian background, but it's pretty similar as Moroccan, but still, I think maybe the same as maybe USA and Canada or so. You have to
Yeah.
work
It's
on
close.
accent that it sounds that you don't hear, like, hey, but he's from Algeria. So
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was really working hard with a dialogue coach on making it work. And he did an amazing job. So we always had a dialogue coach on the set, but the
Mhm.
most important thing was that they would feel free and be and then, of course, there's the brother. Yeah, I once did a shooting with him, and it was a comedy thing, and I thought his comic timing was great. So I thought, okay, he is someone, if you look at him, you see he can be this aggressive type, the cool guy, but when he starts opening up, he really opens up, and his smile, like, embraces you. So I'm like, okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So this was the family I was looking for. Like, okay,
Yeah.
great. And then, yeah, we had some rehearsal time before, a couple of weeks, that we were intensely going into the scenes and making them talk like real family. So a lot of times was like, yeah, I wouldn't say it in this way. Well, then say it the way you want to say it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we really worked on bringing the characters to life. Yeah.
Yeah. They really work so well together. I loved all of the performances. I was so surprised to see Lubna Azabal, because I know and love her not from just from Adam, but from Ansandi, and she's in
Yeah.
another film in the festival, The Blue Kaftan, which, for the
Yeah.
audience,
Yeah.
if you haven't seen that, you should definitely catch it. Um, but she looks so different here, and also she's funny. Like, she's funnier than I've ever seen her before, which is what I wanted to ask you about. Sort of like your film, the tone and the style of it sort of straddles comedy and tragedy. Like, there are some serious, brutal, unflinching moments, death and things that happen in the film, but it's also so funny and comedic and so hilarious. So can you talk about sort of the juxtaposition of those two tones together, and how you manage to do it so well?
Yeah, I always think that comedy is a very good weapon to fight to fight serious subjects with, because you're you sooner tend to laugh about your own incapabilities and
Yeah.
and uh, and not when someone shows you this with drama, like, here, this is it, and you're like, yeah, that's not me. But when you start laughing, it's like, hey, yeah, I'm like that too. So I always like to use humor, and like, and in the daily life, especially, I found out in Arab families, comedy is like such a common thing. Well, at least my Arab family is very funny, and I thought I want to bring this also in the film. And because it doesn't need to be a heavy film. We just need to talk about it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it was very important for us that it wouldn't be just another heavy film, because people already think when they hear the subject, like, oh,
Hmm.
there's gonna be a hard film, but to watch. But no, we we wanted to reach a big audience. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so one of the so we've seen a lot of like coming out narratives, especially in queer films, but this is such a fresh, sharp perspective on that. And I think it all starts from sort of the concept at the beginning of like he locks himself in the closet, a literal closet. It's so funny, it's so visceral, and it's sort of just takes you from there. Like the comedy comes from that, the tragedy comes from that. So can you talk about sort of that concept and how you came up with it? And
Yeah. Actually, it was the first image that I had in my mind, that someone was standing in front of his parents, and well, the idea that I had was that he just says it, and then he already feels like, oh no, this is disrespectful. I have to go, and then hides in the cupboard underneath the stairs, and it's like, okay, I'm not leaving, but we need to talk. So but that was the start, the first idea, and then I thought, actually, that is the thing. If you want to go in this battle, you go into a place where you feel safe, but you still want to confront them. So he's still in the cupboard in the middle of the house, so
mhm,
you cannot go around him. He has all the control with the electricity, etc. And but he needs a door in between, because it would be, in his mind, too disrespectful to just sit there and face them and go into this battle. So uh, yeah, in that sense, we use it. And yeah, a lot of people also say, of course, like, oh, is it a metaphor for in the closet, out of the closet? And it was like, well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't that we wanted to be like, hey, we found a clever metaphor. It was just the first image that came in my mind, like he is barricading him in a place where it's, where they cannot go around him. They need to face him.
yeah. It worked really well. One other thing that I really loved about the film is the character of Karim as a child, who appears in lots of the films. There's conversation between young Karim and older Karim, and it sort of adds this fantastical, sort of metaphysical addition to the narrative. So I wanted to ask you about sort of coming up with that. I know we all, wish we could go back and talk to our younger selves and tell them, it's going to be okay and all of that. But you managed to do it in this film. So can you talk about that?
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, we wanted to find something that could resemble the way it was. Like, because you come into this movie, but you don't know the parents, how they were before this confrontation. So
Hmm.
we thought we wanted to do something with flashbacks, but in a way that your mind also works. Like, we can be in a conversation, but your mind can suddenly wander off to a different different thing, and we wanted to find a sort of uh, um, organic way of moving someone suddenly into this memory. And small Kareem is actually his how do you say it, your child part
Your
that you
child
always
self,
bring with you. Sorry.
your child self, maybe.
Yeah, maybe your child self, that when you uh, it happens all the time when you visit family, you always go back to your role where you
Hmm.
were as a child. You like your older brother, and you know, it's like, even though you're still in your 30s, 40s, whatever, there's always this child role you go back into,
Hmm.
the role that you got accustomed to, and he needs to break out of this. So that's his doubts, like, why don't you just do what mother says? Why don't you, why are you making it harder for everyone? Look what you're doing. All these
Hmm.
things are going through your head, but it's actually your older you who is saying leave it the way it is. And that's why he needs to tell his younger self, but you, this was what you always felt, and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it really works. It works so wonderfully in the film. One other thing I wanted to ask you about is sort of like the visual language of the film. Like I felt like I was on a trip when he was in the closet and in the house. It felt claustrophobic. Then you have these flights of fantasy that you go back in flashback to the younger child, to the love story with Kofi. It all felt like, like you were on a roller coaster of emotion. So can you sort of talk a little bit about how you managed to use the visual language to tell this story?
Yes. We used, for me, it was always the idea to make a sensory style, to have a sensory style that you really go and really feel what Kareem feels. So, like I said, you go into his memories is in an organic way, but also like when you go into his nightmare, that nightmare that never once, it's there. The traumatic events are always there, luring there, and but you don't
Hmm.
want to go there. So that's with the cupboard, when it opens up and you see this long red hole, and
Yeah.
there in the end is the door with the bad memory, the moment he did nothing for his friend, and and he sees it and he looks back, but he cannot go back. He needs to confront it. That's like for example, this uh, the way we found this traumatic experience, because that's the moment he needs to confront what he did wrong, and that he never accepted who he was. And for example, you always also go into these memories, but after a while he needs to go against these memories, like that father tells him, when you were little, you always said, I
Yeah.
want to have a wife just as mom, but she listen, but she will listen, but I want 3 kids, and he goes back like, yeah, you see, that was the thing the child tells him. But then
Hmm.
he's in the water too, he's in the memory saying, no, this was not your memory. The real memory is you want to make your father smile, and that's why
Yeah.
you tell it. So it's like he is in conversation all the time with himself, and I wanted to put it in a sort of sensory style, that it's not like, oh, now we're going in a flashback, but like everything goes just while you're talking, you go
Yeah.
into that, then you go
Yeah.
in dialogue with yourself, and then you say like, no, this is not how it happened.
Yeah.
So
It's like a dream. I mean, we all talk to ourselves, whether, you
yeah.
actually talk loudly or you're just in your head. But you found a way to sort of visually tell us that story by just, straddling, going back and forth between these two places. I think it works so well in the film, and it just makes it so visceral. And you get those scenes and you're like, oh, this is so, so strong, power. You feel it really
Mm.
deeply. So, yeah. I wanted also to ask you about sort of the love story between Kareem and Kofi. That was sort of like a wonderful sort of respite from everything else that we go to this love story, where there is a push and pull between what they each want out of it. But it's also felt like a little oasis of love in the middle of all the tension that's happening in the rest of the story. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because we were also always trying to find a way of, like you say, Kofi being this mirror that also gives air. It's the first time he finds love, because he always was used to, okay, I'm going to the club, I'm, get it over with, and then I'm clean again. That's the way he always faced when his sexuality, like, okay, it's just a sexual thing, and then I'm done, and then I can go on with my life. And then he finds someone who really cares, and who resembles he had the same struggle as he had, and he recognizes it and gives him time and let him open up. So this is because he had the same battle. That's also what a conversation that we had with this whole main actor, Emmanuel, who also said it's actually, I think, the first role that he could, at least he knew of a person from Ghana playing playing a queer man, and he's like, I cannot. He said, so actually, this might also cause me trouble, or at least I hope also that I can open up to I can be the person that people finally can relate to. So it's a similar path. But to go back to the story, sorry, I was drifting off.
No, but that's a good point, because you're showing sort of like a different point of view, another person from the queer diaspora, right?
And
Morocco,
and like Kofi had the same struggle, so he can. But after a while, he's fed up with it, because he says, you're not doing anything. But at the same time, Karim thinks, yeah, easy to talk for you. You left your country and started over new. Yeah, okay, so you can be yourself. But what did you do? I mean, because Karim wants to keep his family, and so that's also the reason why Kofi understands, even though they had the fight, that he understands, okay, let's both not run anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so well done. I think I have time for one last question, Shariff, and I wanted to ask you finally, to close this conversation about this wonderful film. What do you hope audiences get from the story, from the film, as they watch it, as it makes its way through festivals to more audiences?
Well, I hope this movie can open up some conversation that a lot of people are suffering in silence, like either families but also individuals or communities, that they finally have, that they feel seen, and like see that they are not the only one who are struggling. And especially what I hope is that it will get a conversation going, because that's the whole reason behind the film, that we need a dialogue, we need to talk about it, we need we really need to talk about this.
Yeah, definitely need to talk. And this is what Karim does in the film. He manages to force the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the start of everything. And then and because that was a great thing. Like we had a screening in San Francisco at Frameline, and then a Moroccan American man stepped up to us who saw the film, and he said, is it gonna be screened in the cinema, because it's sold for theatrical release to America? So we said, yeah, it's gonna be there, and it starts in San Francisco, LA, and hopefully it will be successful, so it goes to the rest of America. But then he said, okay, great, then I'm gonna take my parents to the cinema, and that will be my coming out.
Wow.
And for me, it was like the best thing that can happen. I mean, it's better than any prize, that someone has the feeling that this film tells everything he couldn't tell to his parents. So I really hope this will that it will spread all over the place, and it will, so we spread the love and spread our hope.
Yeah, let's spread al-hub.
Yeah.
This was so wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Sharif. Thank you for bringing your film to a New Fest and talking with us today.
Yeah, and thank you for this great interview. And
You're
I hope everyone will spread al-hub.
Yes. And thank you to the audience for watching, for joining us today. For more information on how to buy tickets and tune into over 130 films featured at NewFest 34th edition, both in person and virtually all over the United States, you can visit newfest.org. Thank you.
Thank you.